And here we go. We have no clapper, which is fine. You know, we like the clapper, but we're gonna sans the clapper today. But we start off this week, and it's awfully fun because my brother from another is sitting right down there. He's the most handsome Najarian brother I know. I mean, by far. I mean, look at the nice head of hair the guy's got. It's beautiful. Thank you, Mark, for sitting in. John's doing, I don't even know what he's doing. Do you?
I think he's working. Like legitimately, he's in Chicago. He's got some appointments this morning. Mm-hmm. But my understanding is that I am appearing here not because of schedule conflict, but by popular demand. And a huge thank you to my mom, my daughter, the dog walker, and the 3 or 4 other people on my payroll that wrote and sent cards and letters insisting they see more of me on Rebel's Edge. And so, hey, folks, you asked. I know most of you didn't, but here I am.
And we deliver. So good afternoon to everybody except on the West Coast. Good morning. Hope everybody's enjoying. This is the Rebel's Edge. He's Marc LoPresti. I'm Pete Najarian. John Najarian is parts unknown, but today at least you get the break. You don't have 2 bald guys sitting here trying to tell you about the markets, talking about sports and everything else. We got a guy with a wonderful head of hair, and I'm jealous every single time I see it.
It's also mine, by the way. Like, it's 100% legitimately, no artificial enhancements.
There's no AI going on there? There's no AI?
No, sir. No. Well, if I had the AI, I would have done something about my belly. So no.
Well, you don't have one, but if you did, it's all covered up. But it's all good.
There you go.
All right. We're ready to rock and roll. We're going to hit the macro minute. And in this macro minute, I'm going to start it off, Mark, and I'll let you take it after me. But the 10-year treasury, we talk about this all the time, and we talked about it getting up at 4. And I've said many, many times, you get above 4, people start to get nervous. They start to sell. We had a pretty rough week last week. They started to sell. And here's the thing. August, it's been above 4 the entire month of August so far. So 3 weeks. And now today, fresh highs, a little bit higher than what? 433, 434, something like that. That's where the 10-year is. And that's what's hurting the markets right now, at least the Dow. For now,
100%. I think a lot of the headwind that we're seeing today, notwithstanding a lot of the green, is coming from that. Look, those numbers just means that yield curve just gets more and more inverted. If I read one more story from another market strategist that talks about every time the yield curve is inverted for this long, and by the way, it's a new record in terms of the severity of the inversion and the duration. A recession has followed like almost 100% of the time. So it's definitely one of those things that is a schizophrenic signal. I think we're seeing a little bit of a relief rally today. Certainly some stocks like Tesla getting sold off heavily last week in the face of some of that risk and market headwind. But it continues to be something that we watch very, very carefully.
Yeah, it certainly has been interesting. As a matter of fact, I covered a lot of that because more on the macro side, I was with Maria Bartiromo last Friday morning. It was great. Yeah. She's a wonderful lady. And then Larry Kudlow in the afternoon on Saturday, I was with him on the radio show. It was a lot of fun. And we covered a lot of this with Jim Urio. Shout out to my Chicago friend, Jim Urio. All right, we're going to hit the fantastic futures here, Mark.
Fantastic futures.
I'll tell you what, Jared is good. He is really good. All right.
Are we ever going to put the big FF like this? I want to just rip the shirt off when that and have the big FF.
Do the peel. All right. That's on the agenda the next time you and I are on here. We're doing that. I look forward to it. All right. So I'm going to talk about coffee futures because who loves coffee more than me? Nobody. Nobody on the planet. Nobody drinks more than I do, loves it as much as I do. And it ain't for the caffeine. I love the flavor. But here's the thing, Mark. The futures are now very interesting. In April, they were over 200, right? Now we're all the way down to 150. So we haven't been this low since going all the way back to January. So it's an interesting drop. Now, here's my question to you. Will Starbucks drop the prices when the price of coffee drops? We know the answer.
Nope. It's easy for prices to go up. It's very hard for prices to go down. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Well, I am curious, though, John, because we've seen Pete. Damn
That's
it.
Okay.
We Freudian slip. Was he also Armenian, by the way? He probably was with that IAN at the end. Yeah. A little bit. Agricultural futures, as we've talked about before, tend to accelerate to the upside at the end of a Fed hiking cycle, right? And we've seen that across the board in rice and wheat, corn, FCOJ, et cetera. I expected coffee to continue that trajectory. What do you attribute this rather significant turn versus the April print?
I don't know, Mark. I mean, I find this really interesting. We've been talking about a lot of these different futures and these contracts for a while now, whether it's in the metal category and the agricultural categories, and we've seen some really incredible ups and downs in corn, in wheat, all of that. And we've tried our very best to touch on these topics every single time and try to find new ones. But I've been so on to this energy side of this whole thing.
Sure.
And the crude oil move has been unbelievable. I think the reason people don't understand it is a lot of new people to the markets. They don't really realize the history of, hey, look, crude doesn't very frequently go from 68 to 84 like that. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And that's what we've been watching. And, some of these moves in the futures side of things have been really, really dramatic. And I'm thinking it's more and more momentum traders that are part of the markets now. I think there's this inflow of momentum traders that have really kind of come into, especially in the future side of things.
Agreed.
Yep. So we're going to jump onto this one. We're jumping right into Palo Alto Networks. Now this thing is up and flying to the upside, up 14, 15%. And why is that? Well, everybody, they were talking about this stock last Friday, and they were talking about, hey, why did they move their earnings to after the close on a Friday? And basically everybody started going, whoa, they're trying to hide, and they're trying to hide their earnings. Not at all, as it turns out. These guys absolutely crushed it. Cybersecurity, when you look at the earnings beat, 144 Mark versus 128. You look at the revenue beat, 144 billion against 128 billion. I mean, across the board, and full year billings, they're expected to be even higher than expected originally as well. 10.9 billion to 11 billion. Across the board, a home run. When you hit a home run like this, you have moves like the stock's having today, 15, 16% to the upside.
Yeah, and the question that I always get after a move like this, so let's jump ahead of it and address that question. Does it have more room to run? Should I take profits? What should I do here? And if I didn't participate in this massive run up, is there still time? The back of the napkin math, which Pete just did a great job of simplifying and summarizing, indicates that the stock does have additional upside. If you have profit, take some, right? Shorten the swing, as Pete and John always say, don't be a pig. But I think, believe it or not, even after 15% up today, which is, I think, the print when I looked just a few seconds ago, that there may be more room, maybe not tomorrow, but this thing's got more room to go in terms of the stock price meeting that forward guidance.
I'd agree with you. And I'd even say that when you look at the PE here, it's not nearly as stretched as some of the others. And you're looking at a PE, a forward PE of about 40. Now, is that high? Yes. But in the cybersecurity world, really not that high. So I think you're right, Mark. I think there is a little bit more room to the upside off of this beat. All right, we're going to jump to Nvidia. And this one's interesting because its PE is a little bit stretched. But nonetheless, it's a stock that has been moving to the upside. We have a great move today in this particular name. And why is that? Well, they've got earnings on Wednesday. So why is it today? I find this great news for a lot of people. I love when an analyst, and they never do this until today, but I love when an analyst comes out, Mark, and says something very bullish or bearish about a company before earnings. Their earnings are Wednesday, and HSBC reiterated their buy, and they raised their price target. And quite a few others raised their price target as well. So with that being the backdrop, Baird actually now has that as their top pick. I love it. I love to see analysts actually get out on top of it instead of saying after the earnings, well, this is what you should have done. That's not all that helpful. These guys are out here on Monday saying this is what we think. So they're expecting this stock to maybe rocket even more than it has.
Yeah, I mean, KeyBank analyst, who was one of the ones that joined on the bandwagon, put a $620 price target on this thing. Damn, that is very, very impressive. And yes, it is nice to see analysts doing what I think they're allegedly supposed to do for a change, which is give indications of what's going to happen as opposed to do Tuesday morning quarterback about what did happen. But
Yeah.
I'm going to hold my water on that.
Yeah. It's an amazing, that's 200. By the way, that 620 is nearly $200 on that, Mark. Isn't that amazing? We're looking at, where are we right now today? 450, and they're looking for 620. I mean,
Yep.
Yowza. That's a big one.
I mean,
All
that's not a tomorrow target, right? Just so folks understand, that's not a
Right.
tomorrow target, right? That's getting into maybe a year from now, 8 to 12 months from now. Those price targets are not immediate, and don't expect the stock to just run up to those price targets as soon as they get set. And that is an aggressive one. But man, the Nvidia bull run also seems to still have steam left in it.
Yeah. Speaking of steam, how about Tesla? Now, last week, Tesla struggled. They were beating it up almost every single day. They were just hammering it. And now today, it's up about 6%. It's having a pretty good day. They're talking about, there's even some of the competitors. I think that says something good about the whole EV space when their competitors have something good going on. Xpeng actually is one of those who got an upgrade. And when you look at it, they talked about getting free cash flow. They think it's going to be positive in the near future. So that's something that I think is actually, believe it or not, a benefit to Tesla as well, because I think the EV space actually feeds upon each other pretty nicely. And when we look at Tesla specifically, I'll tell you what, the Cybertruck and the Model 3 in China, the new improved and everything else, people are pretty excited about this whole thing. People are talking about seeing the Cybertrucks and they're saying, holy smokes, that thing is pretty daggone nice. So what do you think, Mark? What do you think of this thing right now? I like Tesla. A matter of fact, we had some great options trading in Tesla as recently as today.
Yep.
So we're seeing a lot of people looking for more and more upside right now in Tesla.
Yeah, good news, right? That's my largest position. You know, it's a stock that your brother and I, trade a lot in the private account that we manage for ourselves. We don't manage any outside money, of course. I think that this is more a matter of the thing was just way oversold last week. There wasn't much other than that positive commentary from that analyst over at Baird, Pete. Was there really any news? Cybertruck's cool. Well, the Cybertruck was cool last week when they were whacking the thing down 11%, right? And, Model 3 up, sort of increased enthusiasm. I didn't see a ton of real news in what came out today, other than this commentary from that Baird analyst, and it just got oversold last week. Sometimes, folks, it's just that simple. It's oversold or overbought, and then you have to see a reversal in one way or the other.
In the markets, we oftentimes use the expression putting lipstick on a pig, right? Well, lipstick is a little bit of an issue right now for Estee Lauder. These guys have been struggling in a big way, Mark, and they continue that struggle. And when we look at what they've presented to us recently with earnings and expectations and everything else, it's very disappointing. I mean, they've got some issues in China that are certainly something that I think we all ought to step up and understand. And then when you look at Europe and you look at Africa and you look at different other markets as well, there are some issues out there. Their sales were down, by the way, 19% year over year over in Europe and the Middle East. That's a pretty bad number. This is a stock that's been under some extreme pressure. And when you look over to China, I think it gives you a little bit of an understanding when we say China hasn't been able to pull itself out. Their economy is really struggling. It tells me that people aren't willing to buy those products right now because they're having to kind of hoard their money as best they can, hold it close to the vest and not spending. And that's what we saw pretty much from the retail spending over in China. So this one's definitely under pressure. It was down about quite a few percent. It is very close to 52-week lows right now, trading about 153, let's call it. But the high, the year to date, or excuse me, the 1 year high was 283. And here it is at 152. So it's a stock under some very, very big pressure right now, Mark.
Yeah, for sure. I think you got it right. I don't have a ton to add to this one, but that's definitely one of the things that if you're trying to stretch your dollar, you could skip buying, the new latest lipstick or nail polish and cosmetics. A lot of that stuff that Estee sells actually also tends to be in the mid to higher range. So as people trade down, they trade down in cosmetics as well, and they might use something they can get, at the dollar store or the equivalent in Europe. So I don't think that stock is going to see those 52-week highs anytime soon. I would stay far away from this one.
Yeah, I would say the pressure will be on for a longer period of time than people are probably expecting right now.
100%.
All right, we're going to jump to some sports now, Mark, and I know you love this part of it. I'm looking at something that I think has been going on in the NFL for a long period of time. We talk about preseason, how meaningless it is, and the reduction of games, but the starters aren't out there, and people get a little frustrated about this. Now, it's interesting because I'll ask you this question. Would you play starters? And here's where I'm starting off with. This weekend, we had two major injuries where guys were carted off the field. Isaiah Bolden is one of those players. We're talking about the New England game this past weekend. They had to pull him off. Things didn't look all that great, but he's back and he's okay. But that's a good thing, obviously. We also had a quarterback, John Wolford from Tampa. They were playing the Jets. He had to get carted off the field. He could not feel parts of his body after a hit. He's back. He's okay. But all that being said, knowing those injuries are out there, I got one interesting one for you, Mark. Now, you're the GM, let's say, of the Jets. Actually, let's say for now it's the Giants. You're the GM for the Giants. Andy Reid has Pat Mahomes playing in the preseason. Always has, always will. And they've not had an issue. But if you were the GM, would you start your quarterback, who you think is your starting quarterback, would you allow him to play in the preseason? I'm just curious because, it's really interesting that Pat Mahomes will get out there. He only threw 2 passes in game 1. In game 2, he was 10 of 15, looked pretty good. He looked like Patrick Mahomes. But what would you do under those circumstances if you were the GM?
I don't understand. Right. And I know that it's sort of hard to question this coach given his track record, particularly his recent track record. But why put your most valuable assets at risk in preseason when it doesn't help or impact the standings? It doesn't really mean much. It's great entertainment. It's good for the second string guys to get some on-field play. So when they get called on the field in regular season, they know which direction to run. Right. I get all of that. But I don't understand why you would put an asset like Pat Mahomes in harm's way. And the logic I've heard behind this is, it gets them emotionally and psychologically. It keeps the rigor. It gets them psyched. It gets them sort of into it early. Still doesn't justify it to me. I just don't get it.
I hear you, and I understand the risks. And we're going to go on to the second one, which is Hard Knocks. And this one's very correlated to what we were just talking about. And you're probably saying, well, what are you talking about? Well, Aaron Rodgers, he's 39 years old. He has not played in a preseason game since 2018. He's going to be playing in the preseason game against the Giants in this last preseason game. And he's enthusiastic about it. He has not missed a practice since he got to the Jets. He's doing all the right things, at least optically from the outside looking in. He's sitting with different players every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So he knows everybody on the team. So I really think he has committed himself to being this team player with the Jets. He wants everything that they've got. They signed Dalvin Cook. They've finally got him a running back because Breece Hall's coming out. He's a great player, but he's coming off an ACL. That's not always easy. But Breece Hall's going to play. Dalvin Cook's going to play, and Aaron Rodgers is going to play this weekend against the Giants in the last preseason game. What do you think of this? I know what you just got done saying, but how do we square this thing? It's a big move.
Well, first of all, it is definitely the talk of the town or the towns in this New York, New Jersey area, right? I'm sitting in the great state of New Jersey here today, and everybody's excited about it. I knew, by the way, Pete, that we were really getting into the end of preseason when my daughter picked on Sunday when we made our donut trip, the Jets Dunkin' Donut. It was a white frosting with green sprinkles, and that was really it. They didn't throw it at you, which maybe would have made it even more exciting. But it is something everybody is looking forward to. Everybody around here is going to be watching. We're going to be watching. But a guy that's 39 years old and hasn't played preseason since the previous presidential administration, I just don't get it. Perhaps more importantly, though, I am very excited about how the Jets look this season. I think they've got a shot at doing some really great stuff, and it's going to be some unbelievable football to watch. Not that I'm looking forward to calling summer over, Summer ain't over, but this is definitely going to be an entertaining football season here in the tri-state.
Oh, it's going to be great, Mark. And the only pushback I'd have with you on putting a quarterback in like this, or any of the star players, call them. So there's wide receivers, running backs, whatever.
Sure.
I would only do it if they're all in. I mean, I need all 11 starters in there. If I'm going to have the quarterback in there, I don't want second and third string linemen blocking for my quarterback, right? I mean, and I think that makes it a little bit easier for me to say, okay, I can take a little bit of a deep breath because these guys are the starters protecting the other starters. And that gives me a little bit of something where I feel a little bit more confident about that. But I can see all sides of this whole thing, but I think sometimes, believe it or not, and I can speak as a guy who was there, it's a lot different when you're trying to analyze, even if you've got the starters, trying to see where are they in their progression.
Right.
Are they there? Because in practice, let me tell you something. Aaron Rodgers, if you touch his jersey, you're going to get thrown off the field. So that's just how it works. You don't touch the big guys, and everybody knows it. So they know it. So when they're throwing, they throw differently because they know nobody's going to touch them. Nobody's going to do anything. They're not going to smack them as they go by or any of those kinds of things. But put the starters in, all of them. This week with the Vikings preseason game against Tennessee, 38 players were in street clothes. I don't know. There's got to be an answer that's a good answer. I don't know what the best answer is, but sometimes you do got to have a little bit of experience out there.
Well, maybe it makes more sense to have less of a controlled environment in practice.
For sure.
Right? So that you're not putting these guys at risk against true opposition in preseason when it doesn't mean anything except entertainment value. Yep. So maybe that might be part of the answer. With my vast coaching experience here making this suggestion, of course, it's a big disclaimer and caveat, but maybe don't treat them like with kid gloves when they're practicing with their own teammates.
I hear you. I agree with you, Mark. I got State Fair starting Thursday here in Minnesota. It's the biggest state fair in the country. I want to point that out. They have 10 days and not 30 days. Texas has more people, but we only do it in 10 days, and we have almost the same number of people. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to football. We got college. We got NFL. We got it all, man. It's going to be great. Thank you for filling in today for John. You're not a fill-in. You're the man. We appreciate it. And we will see you all next time. John and I will be here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, Rebels Edge.